What happens when a beloved icon reaches his breaking point on live television? The studio lights were hot, the audience packed, and nobody could have predicted what was about to unfold. Before we get into this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling us what you think about what happened here. The View's opening music faded as the cameras focused on the panel. Joy Behar leaned forward with that signature smirk, ready to dive into the day's hot topic. Michael J. Fox sat across from her, relaxed in his chair. That familiar warmth in his eyes that had endeared him to millions over decades of work and film and television. Joy started off friendly enough. Michael, it's so good to have you here. We've been talking a lot lately about celebrities and their causes, and I have to say, some of them really seem to milk their situations for attention. The studio went quiet. Michael's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. I'm sorry, Joy. Are you going somewhere specific with this? Joy laughed, waving her hand dismissively. Oh, come on. You know what I mean. Like, we get it. You have Parkinson's. But at some point, doesn't it become, your whole identity? Your whole brand? The other hosts shifted uncomfortably. Whoopi started to interject, but Michael raised his hand slightly, his voice still measured. My whole brand. That's an interesting way to put it, Joy. Tell me, when exactly did my 3-decade career in entertainment get reduced to a brand built on illness? Joy seemed to sense she'd crossed a line but doubled down anyway, which was her nature. I'm just saying, every interview, every appearance, it's always about the foundation, the research, the Parkinson's. What about your actual work? What about the acting? Michael's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You want to talk about my actual work? Let's talk about it. I've done 14 films since my diagnosis. I've appeared in 7 television series. I've written 3 books. But you're right, Joy. I also happen to dedicate a significant portion of my life to funding research for a disease that affects over 10 million people worldwide. How terrible of me. The audience was dead silent now. You could feel the tension radiating through the screen. Joy pressed on, seemingly oblivious to the shift in the room. But don't you think there's something almost, performative about it? Like you're constantly reminding everyone, look at me. Look at what I'm dealing with. Feel sorry for me. That's when something snapped. Michael leaned forward, and when he spoke, his voice had an edge that nobody in that studio had ever heard from him before. Feel sorry for me, Joy. Let me tell you something about performance. Every single morning, I wake up and my body doesn't work the way I want it to. Every single day I have to decide whether I'm going to let that define me or whether I'm going to push through it. And you know what I choose? I choose to use whatever platform I have, whatever attention I still command, to help fund research that might give someone else a better shot than I had. Joy tried to interrupt. Michael, I didn't mean. No. Let me finish. Michael cut her off, his voice rising. Now you sit here in your comfortable chair with your writers and your producers, and you make your clever little comments about other people's lives. You reduce someone's life's work, their genuine suffering, their attempt to make a difference to a brand, to a performance. Do you have any idea how insulting that is? Whoopi finally managed to jump in. I think we need to take a breath here. But Michael wasn't done. You want to know what's performative? Joy, this is performative. This show where you all sit around and pass judgment on people you've never walked a day in the shoes of. You want to talk about my acting? Fine. But when you start questioning the authenticity of my advocacy, when you suggest that I'm somehow exploiting my own illness for attention, that's not journalism. That's not commentary. That's cruelty. Joy's face had gone pale. The other hosts looked stunned. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or remain silent. I came here today because I thought we could have a real conversation, Michael continued, his voice shaking slightly now, though whether from emotion or his condition, no one could tell. I thought we could talk about the incredible progress being made in Parkinson's research. I thought we could discuss how advocacy and entertainment can coexist, but instead, you decided to make this about whether I'm authentic enough for you. Joy finally found her voice. Michael, I think you're overreacting. I was just trying to have an honest conversation about celebrity activism. Michael laughed, but there was no humor in it. An honest conversation. Joy, you just accused me of building my brand on my illness. You suggested I'm performing my symptoms for sympathy. That's not honest conversation. That's character assassination dressed up as provocative television. The tension in the studio was suffocating now. Sunny Hostin tried to step in, her voice gentle. Michael, I think what Joy was trying to say, maybe not in the best way, is that sometimes people wonder how celebrities choose which causes to support and how much of it becomes part of their public persona. Michael turned to her, and his expression softened slightly, but the fire was still there. "Sonny, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but let's not sugarcoat what just happened here. Joy didn't ask me about choice or public persona. She questioned my authenticity. She suggested I was milking my condition. Those are her words, not mine." Joy's defenses went up immediately. "Now hold on. I never said you were milking anything. I said some celebrities do. And I was asking if you ever worry about perception." "No, Joy. That's not what you said." Michael shot back, his voice firm. "You looked me in the eye and said I was making Parkinson's my whole identity, my whole brand. You asked if it was performative. Don't backtrack now just because you realize how it sounded." Sonny Hostin leaned forward, clearly trying to moderate. "I think we're all feeling a lot of emotion right now. Michael, your work with the foundation has been incredible. Nobody can deny the impact you've had on research funding." Michael nodded at her. "Thank you, Sonny. And that's exactly my point. I didn't choose this disease, but once I had it, I made a choice about what to do with it. I could have hidden away. I could have let it end my career quietly. Instead, I chose to be public about it to raise awareness. And apparently, according to Joy, that makes me inauthentic." Joy was getting frustrated now, her voice rising. "You're twisting my words. I was making a broader point about celebrity culture, and you're making this all about you." The irony of that statement hung in the air like smoke. Michael stared at her for a long moment before responding. And when he did, his voice was quiet but devastating. "Joy, you invited me onto this show. You brought up my condition. You questioned my motives. And now you're upset that I'm defending myself. Do you hear yourself right now?" Alyssa Farah Griffin tried a different approach. "Can we talk about the actual work the foundation is doing? Michael, what are some of the recent breakthroughs?" But Michael wasn't ready to let it go. "You know what, Alyssa? I'd love to talk about the breakthroughs. I'd love to talk about how we've funded research that's led to better treatments, improved quality of life for thousands of patients, brought us closer to understanding the mechanisms of neurodegeneration. But I think we need to address what just happened here first, because this is exactly the problem." He turned back to Joy. "This is why people don't talk about their illnesses. This is why people suffer in silence. Because the moment you go public, the moment you try to turn your pain into purpose, someone like you comes along and questions whether you're doing it for the right reasons. As if there's some purity test you have to pass before you're allowed to advocate for yourself and others like you." Joy crossed her arms. "That's not fair. I've supported plenty of causes. I've interviewed plenty of people with illnesses. I'm allowed to ask hard questions." "Hard questions." Michael's voice rose again. "A hard question would be asking me about the challenges of balancing advocacy with privacy. A hard question would be about the ethical considerations of celebrity involvement in medical research. What you did was accuse me of being a fraud. There's a difference, Joy. And you know it." Whoopi tried again to regain control. "Okay, everybody. Let's take this down a notch. We're all adults here. We can disagree without it getting personal." Michael turned to her, his expression pained. "Whoopi, with all due respect, she made it personal the second she questioned my integrity. I've known you for years. You know me. You know my work. Tell me honestly, do you think I'm performing this? Do you think I'm using Parkinson's as a brand strategy?" Whoopi looked uncomfortable, caught between her co-host and her guest. "Michael, I think Joy's delivery was off, but I also think she was trying to explore a legitimate question about how we all curate our public images." "That's a diplomat's answer," Michael said, not unkindly, "but it's also a dodge. The question isn't about curating a public image. The question, as Joy posed it, was whether I'm being authentic or whether I'm exploiting my own illness. And I'm telling you, sitting here right now, that question is deeply offensive." Joy finally seemed to realize the hole she'd dug herself into. "Look, Michael, maybe I could have phrased it better. But you have to admit, in today's world, there's a lot of performative activism. People jumping on causes for social media clout, for attention, for relevance. I was just wondering out loud if you ever think about how you're perceived." Michael's laugh was bitter. "Do I think about how I'm perceived? Joy, I shake uncontrollably sometimes. I have trouble with my balance. My voice changes. Every single public appearance I make, I'm acutely aware that people are watching me, judging me, wondering if I'm okay. So yes, I think about perception. But what I don't do is let that stop me from doing work that matters." The audience was riveted now. Some were nodding along with Michael. Others looked shocked at the raw emotion on display. Sarah tried once more. Michael, your honesty right now is really powerful. I think a lot of people at home are feeling what you're feeling. You know what I hope they're feeling? Michael asked. I hope they're feeling angry. I hope they're feeling frustrated. Because this conversation we're having right now, it happens to people with chronic illnesses every single day. People question their pain. People question their limitations. People suggest they're exaggerating or seeking attention. And it's exhausting. Joy's expression had changed now. Whether it was genuine remorse or just the realization that this wasn't playing well, something shifted in her demeanor. Michael, I can see that I've hurt you, and that wasn't my intention. Michael held up a hand. Joy, I don't need your apology if you don't understand why one is necessary. This isn't about my feelings being hurt. This is about the larger message you're sending. When you question the authenticity of someone's advocacy, especially around their own health condition, you're not just attacking me. You're attacking every person out there who's trying to make meaning out of their suffering. Sunny jumped in, sensing an opportunity to steer things somewhere productive. That's a really important point, Michael. Can you talk about what it's been like to hear from other Parkinson's patients over the years? Michael took a breath, visibly trying to collect himself. That's the thing that makes all of this worthwhile. I get letters, emails, messages from people who tell me that seeing me continue to work, continue to live my life, gave them hope. People who were diagnosed and thought their lives were over. And then they saw me on a talk show or in a movie, and they realized they could keep going. That's not a brand, Joy. That's not performance. That's just human beings connecting over shared experience. Joy finally seemed genuinely affected. Her voice was quieter now. I didn't think about it that way. No, you didn't, Michael agreed. And that's the problem. You made a flippant comment about something you don't understand, about a life you've never had to live. And the worst part is, you have a platform. Millions of people watch this show. When you say something like what you said today, it doesn't just affect me. It affects how people think about chronic illness, about disability, about advocacy. Alyssa spoke up, her voice tentative. Michael, what would you want people to understand about living with Parkinson's that maybe they don't get for the first time since the confrontation began? Michael's expression softened into something closer to sadness than anger. I'd want them to understand that it's not just about the physical symptoms. It's about waking up every day and having to fight for normally. It's about the mental and emotional toll of watching your body betray you. It's about the fear of becoming a burden to the people you love. And when you find a way to channel all of that into something positive, into something that might help others, that's not exploitation, that's survival. The studio was absolutely silent. Even the crew members standing off to the side seemed frozen, caught in the moment. Whoopi's voice was gentle. Michael, I think everyone here has a lot of respect for what you've been through and what you've accomplished. Michael turned to her. Do they though? Because 5 minutes ago, Joy was suggesting I was faking the sincerity of my advocacy. Respect isn't just about saying nice things. It's about believing people when they tell you their truth. It's about not questioning someone's motives when they're trying to do good in the world. Joy had tears in her eyes now. Whether they were tears of shame or frustration or genuine emotion, it was hard to say. Michael, I'm sorry. I really am. I was trying to be provocative, and I crossed a line. I wasn't thinking about the impact of my words. Michael studied her for a moment. You know what, Joy? I actually believe you. I don't think you woke up this morning planning to hurt me or anyone else. But that's almost worse, isn't it? Because it means this kind of casual cruelty, this questioning of people's authenticity. It's so normalized that you didn't even realize you were doing it. Sarah had tears in her eyes, too. Now, this has been one of the most real conversations I think we've ever had on this show. Real, Michael repeated almost to himself. You want to know what's real? What's real is that I'm going to leave this studio today, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to take my medication, and I'm going to do my physical therapy, and tomorrow I'm going to get up and do it all over again. And the day after that, and the day after that. That's real. The foundation work I do, the advocacy, the awareness raising, that's all just me trying to make something positive out of a situation I didn't choose and can't control. Sunny leaned forward. And for what it's worth, I think you've done an incredible job of that. The Michael J. Fox Foundation has raised hundreds of millions of dollars for research. Thank you, Sunny, Michael said. And that's the part that kills me about this whole conversation. We could have spent this time talking about the actual science. We could have talked about the promising new therapies in development. We could have talked about how people can get involved, how they can support research. Instead, we spent it defending the basic premise that I'm a human being trying to do good in the world. Joy wiped at her eyes. You're right. You're absolutely right. And I'm sorry. I'm genuinely, truly sorry. Michael looked at her for a long moment. I appreciate that, Joy. I do. But I want you to remember this feeling the next time you're about to make a clever comment about someone's life, someone's struggle, someone's choices. Words have power, especially yours, especially on a show like this. Whoopi tried to find a way to wrap things up. I think we all learned something today. I know I did. Michael stood up slowly, and for a moment, everyone thought he was walking off the set, but instead he remained standing, looking at each of the hosts in turn. I didn't come here today expecting this to happen, but maybe it needed to. Maybe people needed to see what it looks like when someone finally says enough. When someone stands up and says, "You don't get to question my truth. You don't get to reduce my life's work to a brand strategy. You don't get to suggest I'm performing my pain." He looked directly into the camera now, speaking to the millions watching at home. If you're dealing with a chronic illness, if you're struggling with a disability, if you've ever felt like you had to justify your suffering to anyone, I want you to know that you don't. Your experience is valid, your advocacy is valid, and anyone who questions that says more about them than it does about you. The audience erupted in applause. It started slow, just a few people, but within seconds, the entire studio was on their feet. Joy was openly crying now. The other hosts looked shaken but moved. Michael gave a small nod to the audience, then turned back to the panel. "Thank you for having me," he said quietly, and this time he did walk away, leaving the hosts to sit in the aftermath of what had just happened. The cameras stayed on the panel as they tried to compose themselves. Joy was struggling to speak. Whoopi put a hand on her shoulder. The audience was still applauding, still standing. The sound filling the studio long after Michael had disappeared through the exit. That moment right there changed everything. Not just for the show, not just for the conversation around celebrity advocacy, but for everyone watching who'd ever felt dismissed or questioned or doubted. Sometimes it takes someone exploding, someone finally saying what needs to be said to wake people up. So what do you think? Did Michael go too far, or did Joy deserve every word of that? Hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below.